Hey there, and welcome to YAS, a stripper podcast. On this podcast, we'll discuss how classifying each other as people and workers is dangerous to society and marginalized groups of people. We'll also talk about the climate in and outside of the strip clubs and all of the amazing things that strippers do. And of course, we'll talk about all of the things in between. I'm your queen, A.M. Davies, and this is YAS, a stripper podcast.
Hello everyone, AMD here. Thank you for tuning in. Another week, another episode. I am super stoked. I'm always stoked though. Isn't that what they say? We have a great episode for you tonight. Every time I do this, I have a great fucking time. And huge shout out to sex workers for always brightening my day. Today, I had the chance to meet a new sex worker. Her name is Natalie. And I met Natalie through a referral from a past podcast guest named Glenn, who you should have listened to his episode. If you didn't, go find that one. And I have to say that I like this idea of meeting new strippers / sex workers through referrals from other strippers / sex workers who think like, you know, people that I don't know. And it's really important to me and to the team behind Yes, the Stripper podcast to bring forth voices that we don't have the opportunity to find because, well, number one, we're so shadow banned that people that we should be able to discover were unable to do so because it's harder through the algorithms of social media to be able to find amazing people. So I say all of that to say that if you know someone who you think that their voice should be amplified, that their story, that you'd like to offer an opportunity for their story to be told, or like, just hit us up. Seriously, like, this podcast is such community to me. That would be the first word that comes to my mind if somebody were to say like, what word would define your podcast succinctly. I would say community. 100% community. And my second word would be education. Because, man, we spend a lot of time educating these civilians out here. And hey, shout out to all you civilians who've been tuning in and learn a thing or two from all of the amazing voices that come onto this podcast. So yeah, if you know someone, please shoot us a message, send us some referrals, because there are some really amazing untold stories out there that I think are really important for other people to hear. And so Natalie is one of those people. She was so insightful and but also like gave me food for thought, and I found myself asking her questions to like really dig and get in there. And before I knew it, I was speaking about deeper things, in the episode's supposed to be about her. And then there I was like telling part of my story. And I think that's one of the things also I love about having these interviews is that it feels very symbiotic at times. And I really do feel like when I'm in the process of interviewing someone that I learn something new about myself, and I have my eyes are more open to experiences that I've had for the last 20 years that I can't pinpoint, because I have such an amazing opportunity to talk to so many insightful people, and Natalie is definitely one of those characters in this narrative. So, I'm really excited for you to listen as always. And don't forget to send out some of those referrals of some amazing potential new guests. I hope that you're all feeling safe and healthy out there. And let's switch over to Natalie so you can get the full experience. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to introduce you to a new guest, someone I've never met before. Those are some of my favorite interviews. Today I have with me Natalie. But before we talk to Natalie,
I just want to say a big, huge thank you to all of you out there who have been sending in donations and, keep them coming, basically. If you haven't donated yet, we would just love it. My panties get wet every single time I get a PayPal notification. And, this PayPal money goes towards paying our guests, paying our future hosts, and ideally, once we raise enough money, I really want to retroactively pay our past guests because I wouldn't feel right paying new guests and like being like, oh, sorry that I interviewed you 20 weeks ago and didn't have money then, but I'm paying these people now. So your donations go a really long way. It goes into the pockets of these strippers and sex workers that come and spend time with us here on this podcast and share their life stories and put their heart out there for you all to listen to. So please, if you love this show and you're tuning in, please send your donations to paypal.me/yes, a stripper podcast. And have no fear, we are working on finding advertisers and sponsors as well. So it's kind of like this collective effort. All right. So one more time, paypal.me/yes, a stripper podcast. Thank you for listening to that PSA. So, hello, Natalie. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me so much.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And Natalie, would you please tell our audience what your pronouns are?
It's she, her, they, them.
Thank you. Those are my same pronouns too.
Cool. Good.
Yeah. Yeah. And it took me a minute to get there, I really wanted to be sure. So many questions swirled around that for me. So, and I'm inspired by people like you who were doing that and like showed me the way, basically. So, thank you.
I identify. It took a minute for me to put them in my bio, even though I wanted to even take up space using they, them pronouns. But also, I think gender is a sham. Even as I raise little children and I see how gendered our childhood experiences, I really want to divest from compulsive gender.
Yeah. Yeah. You strike me as a person who does not live or want to live, because I don't know all your details, but like within the constructs of society. That's kind of what I picked up a little bit from stalking you on Instagram.
I guess that's true. I mean, I don't know if you feel like this. I'm 36, and so as I age, I'm just more and more myself. And if I step outside myself for a second and look around, I'm like, oh, I'm kind of doing things different. Especially parenting gives you a real mirror to to the ways in which you're similar and the ways in which you're different from the society you're in. So
yeah,
thanks for that. I'm also an Aquarius, so
okay, I love that.
I'm big weirdos.
Is that true? I didn't. I think, Aquarius. Yeah.
I mean, I can't speak for every Aquarius. Sometimes I'm just like, I think this is because I'm an Aquarius.
I get that. Yeah, and I think that you're kind of witchy too, and I definitely want to get into that. But you mentioned having children, and how many children do you have?
I have 2. Mm-hmm. One of them's 9, and he's a boy. He identifies as a boy. One of them we don't know yet, but I use she, her pronouns, and she's 2.
Nice. And so I hope you don't mind and stop me at any time, but did you have a conversation around pronouns and gender identity with your son?
I continuously do it because, I continuously, we have a lot of trans folks around us, which has really helped. I don't want to use trans people's lived experience as teachers, but he's had really, really strong trans adult friends that have helped him just kind of, I feel like, have a much larger grasp of gender than most adults that I see around me. Yeah. But he says right now he wants to use he, him pronouns.
That's really nice.
Feels like a boy, whatever that feels like. So
yeah, I can't imagine like when I was that age, like I think back on the time and how much everything's just changed so much, from when, because I'm 40, so we're similar. We're in the same age group, and it was just so different then. And I remember like playing with the boys all the time and like being a girl, and
just so interesting. And I'm so excited for this new generation to have like exposure to what we just didn't have the opportunity to have exposure to.
Me too. I really am.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And your children are beautiful, by the way,
Thank
because
you.
you post about them, not because I'm being weird or anything. So yeah,
Thank you.
they're really beautiful. Yeah. So I wanted to go back to like there's something that you mentioned that I kind of discovered. You said happy Ostara on a post, and I was like, I'm really curious about that. I've never heard that word, so I'm about to learn something really new. Would you mind sharing that?
Well, that's so interesting. I'm not the expert on this. I was hanging out with a friend who was like, "It's Ostara," which is tied into Easter. So this isn't part of my practice, but I was like, "Let's celebrate." I'm down to celebrate any day. And so I guess it has similar. I couldn't speak with any kind of like.
Okay.
I can't really speak on it, but my friend was saying it's related to like springtime and fertility and
Okay.
those kind of things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought maybe it was like a witchy practice or something like that. Yeah.
I think it's like European. I think it's a like European tradition, witchy
Okay.
practice. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, I would love to learn more about Ostara because I want to know more about being a witch,
Mm.
and I just kind of get this vibe from you that you're like very in tune with nature and the earth, and I noticed that you're also into the magician card in tarot,
Mm.
and so I was just kind of hoping you could expand on like what like speaks to you, and because you just to me I don't know, there's something about your energy that I'm just dying to know more and like peel back
Oh,
the layers of you. Yeah.
you're so sweet. Well, I think actually it ties into sex work because I feel like especially I've been doing this work almost 20 years and I wouldn't say that I'm trained, but I've always been magically inclined. Like my auntie gave me a tarot deck when I was like 5 and took me very seriously as a tarot reader. It was helpful to have adults take me seriously, you know?
Yeah.
And so I've always kind of felt magical or seen things in a synchronous, like see how the dimensions overlay on top of each other, and then having so much time to have my work not be a 9 to 5, to have like creative work and also really magical work. I don't know, I feel like all strippers believe in magic, right? Because you just know when you're on stage and you're like, I'm in it, like people are only seeing what I want them to see, and then you also know when you're not in it and where shit just doesn't feel right. You're not like people. It's just like having so many years, I guess, in doing sex work of various kinds has really helped me hone my magical practice, kind of like put intent and learn how to glamour people, learn how to cleanse energy, learn how to like pattern recognize in my own self. I felt like every day at the strip club was like an acid trip.
Yeah.
And I don't drink, so it was all very much just being in such a place of just pure energy and chaos. It just taught me a lot, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
Um,
I love
yeah.
what you said about pattern recognize. Can you elaborate on that?
Um, so I think my time stripping, I did a lot of work pattern recognizing. Like I came into sex work. I was a dom before I was a stripper. All of it kind of happened accidentally as life flows.
Mm.
And when I came into dancing, I was like a sexual abuse survivor, really, really scared of intimacy, scared of my body, didn't think I could dance, like all the things. And so giving myself I learned a lot and grew a lot in sex work and giving myself that space to engage with people and engage with sensual energy, in a way that had boundaries that were enforced by other people, like bouncers or the club, gave me a lot of time to like dive into myself, learn how to dance, learn how to be perceived, learn how to like own my my sexual energy, learn how to project, learn how to put boundaries in and like protect myself too. So not all of it was out there. People see what you want them to see. And so I guess in that, as I look at like the trajectory of my stripping career, there was a lot of like, just a lot of like mental, emotional, spiritual work that was going on while I was like dancing for dollars. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it totally makes sense. It totally 100%, because for me, like I remember times where, it's slow. It was slow in the club, but you still have to be there. And so,
Yes.
what are you going to fill your time with? Like for me, it would be like, like that picture of a cartoon was in my brain, like like just actively working and like thinking and using my time in a valuable way when I was just waiting for the next person to walk through the door that might be my bank for the night, instead of sitting in the back on my phone, which is also very fun at times, but like, really like diving deep. And then sometimes, I even went through periods of like, what am I doing here? I would have moments like that as well. I don't know if you've ever experienced that.
Yo, yes. Yeah, definitely. And I
Yeah.
think that during my time strip, yeah, go on. What were you
No,
gonna
no,
say?
no, no.
Sorry.
I'm just
Not trying to
I'm in
interrupt.
agreement with you. Yeah, no. You have the mic. It's your
Yeah.
turn. Yeah.
Yeah, the what am I doing here? I don't know if this happened for you, but I would really, really trip on how much like my outer presentation was leading for me, and how critical it was that I pay attention to my outer presentation. Because when I was introduced to sex work, I was introduced through Dom and fetish and fantasy. And so like the things I learned in there is how specific sexuality can be, like how individual, it's like people would come in and want to see your dirty feet. They'd want to see your clean feet. They'd want to see you dressed as the grandma. They'd want to see, big people. They'd want to see small people. And so from that, it was very permissive in a way to really go into like what makes this person hot, and then when I started stripping, I was like, oh no, this initially is a dialogue with like cultural perceptions of hotness. Like I am performing desirability based on like the club I'm in, based on who my clientele is, and I'm having to like put on this cartoon of hotness and desirability, and perform it. And I learned a lot in that way too. But I would go through it with my body. I would go through it with aging. I would go through it when I would just be like, I don't want to pretend I'm 24. I want to see what 30, I want to be 33 and look 33 and act 33. But, and then it's felt like a cycle where you like regenerate. I feel like, we're all regenerative, but I feel like sex workers have the edge on regeneration, of like putting our energy out, calling it back, regenerating, like just the creative output of only selling your own sexual energy. It's like, that's magic, like that's the curriculum if you want to learn how to do some shit. Like that was what I was noticing when I was dancing in my time dancing.
Yeah, yeah. You just like a million questions popped into my head just now. And like, yeah. And one of the things that you said, how you came from doming, and I know a couple of doms, and you're right, it's very specific and very eclectic, like the desires of the client. Whereas in the strip club, you're right, it's like, no, I want hot women and like this particular height and size and look, and strip clubs are very much like that, where you know the managers that are in charge of hiring, it's like a very specific look and style. Whereas in doming and the other, forms of sex work you came from, is like very like just different. And so it's just hitting me now that I was in like 18 years of this work, that it was constantly expected of me to look and be a certain way all the time in order to be successful.
Yeah.
And it's almost like I loved that job, but like sort of like mentally and emotionally abusive at the same time because of society in general, right? Yeah.
Totally. And I feel like a lot of times I'm shy to have these conversations with anyone other than a sex worker, because I don't want the general public to be like, it's mentally and emotionally abusive. It's like, fuck you. Like, work is mentally and emotionally abusive.
Exactly.
But internally, and this is why I feel like it sucks that our work is devalued, and it's not seen as something you really need to have elders and training and a curriculum around learning. Like, our work is it's so beautiful, and it requires so much of you that, like, it sucks that the structures of our work burn through people, and so many people are lost under how grueling this work is, and we don't have structural support to really make people still stay whole as they do this. And a lot of people still stay whole, but we're always reinventing the wheel. And I think this is like, our work is some of the oldest work that exists. Like,
Right. Well, yeah.
and so, like, it's important that we're even able to have these conversations with each other to be like, how do you deal with like performing hotness? Like what even is hotness? How do you deal with performing hotness? How do when we know that when we get in the back room, people want all kinds of things, people want to smell our dirty armpits. People like us because they like our spirits. They like, but when we're on stage and people are throwing dollars and men are performing for each other and we're performing this like hypersexualized hotness, how do we deal with the toll that takes on us?
Right.
Yeah, as you speak, so much comes up for me because I respect you a lot. I've stalked you a lot.
Oh, thank you.
I'm sure you have, like, I'm so happy this podcast exists because you're such a,
thank you.
Yeah.
Me too. Because of all of you. And I've had such a wonderful opportunity to meet so many amazing people all over the world. And it's one of the things that keeps me going every day. We did this strong through the pandemic, and one of the benefits of the pandemic was it forced us to do this online. And so it opened up so many new guests and so many more opportunity. And like, I don't want to go back to the studio. Sorry, Mackenzie and network. I want to keep talking to new, like, all over the place people. Yeah, so, and I did want to make sure that, like, any civilians out there listening understands, like, the mental and emotional abuse that's attached to what we deal with inside of the clubs is based on the constructs that have been built by society about how people should look. And I say people because not all of us, even that are female presenting, necessarily identify as women, and that is a whole other ball of wax, and the social constructs that we live under. And I'm convinced that it's not the strip club it's not the strip club business, maybe culture, yes, because it's run by men mostly, but it's society that has sort of built this image and idea of strippers, and then the strip clubs feed into that, and it's just like this cycle of like, this is how women, and I'm using that in quotations because that's what's mostly presenting in strip clubs, this is how they're supposed to look, this is how they're supposed to be. And it's like, well, who's making all these rules anyway? Who?
right.
Literally, I want to know who.
I want to know too.
Yeah, and so it brings me to this point about something that you wrote, and you wrote that consensual reality is dead. Please tell me what you meant by that, because I'm wondering if it's kind of tying into what we're talking about right now.
I mean, I try to affirm that for myself a lot, and I've learned that so much with dancing, because I would have to do so many affirmations to walk in that door and be naked in front of people, and I would have to be like, you know what, these are all the things that you can do to be what you need to be on stage, because I didn't take it lightly. I had a lot of sexual trauma. Like, it wasn't easy for me to be naked on stage sober as a non-dancer, as a former ugly kid. Like, and so I think that internal awareness of consensual reality being dead, and me having something inside me that I wanted to project on stage, and then watching when I would successfully project it and the audience would respond. Like, I was like, oh, whoa, like I can do that, you know? And then having a decade doing that, you kind of learn some stuff. And then I thought it was really exciting in 2020, especially, I mean, there were a lot of terrible, fucked up things about 2020. I don't want to be a person that's like, 2020 was great.
Right.
But one of the things I noticed as it was early lockdown and folks were kind of in a tailspin about like, what are we doing? That people started getting radically different sleep schedules from each other. We were all just very much inside ourselves. And we weren't really like, a lot of the things that form consensual reality were kind of glitching. Like, all of my friends and I were on different sleep schedules. We were just kind of like going to our own places and all having very different fears come up with the pandemic. And I felt like reality itself was kind of glitching. It was like, I felt like we were kind of like the future wasn't predetermined, you know, and so much of like the narrative that we were telling ourselves about what was happening in that moment was what was going to affect the next moment. And I just really felt that vibe so much. And I still feel like consensual reality is dead. I feel like even the internet and us being able to be our own media sources to each other is doing something around how we process reality. And the narratives we create about what's going on.
About what's going on and what's been going on as well. You know, like our history and like, and I'm, so yeah, and the consensual reality of like, this is how a sexual woman should appear. And it's like, no. First of all, let's stop just putting that on women because it's people. And let's stop like placing this like box, like creating these labels and boxes, like this is what a good looking or like desirable person looks like. And I think through like all of these new nuanced conversations that we're having, like, yes, that reality of like the consensus is just being like dismantled, because what I know and see now is so different than my 20-year-old self. So different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And honoring the subjectivity of people's experience, like, I think that's just such a key as we move forward, because folks, I think specifically folks that are really trying to hold on to power, who are non-marginalized, want to dictate the narrative of marginalized people. And it's just like, you can't, like, it's really like, until folks can shut their mouth and just be like, this person is having an experience that I don't understand because I can't understand it, and like respecting where folks' lanes are. And I'm still learning that all the time. I would say I'm definitely not perfect, but like, then we can really get a grasp on like how to even move forward in a human way.
Yeah. And I keep forgetting, because we move so quickly in this digital age that we're in, that we all need like time to process. And I'm just like, hurry up. I want to hurry up. I want you to hurry up. I want everyone to hurry up, get there, so that we can all live a higher conscious type of, in a higher conscious type of reality and society. And like, you know, that we're so higher conscious that we become God ourselves as like an energy cloud in space. Like, can we get there now?
For real. I'm with you 1,000%.
Star Trek really helps give me a lot of ideas. I learn a lot from Star Trek. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting like lessons on that show.
Well, I might have to start watching Star Trek.
Yeah, and that's where I got the idea of like beings turning into a god cloud, that they reached such a higher consciousness level that their energy collectively became a god cloud in space.
Oh, I'm with it. I mean,
yeah,
it wouldn't even surprise me right now
that it's somewhere, that's somewhere.
Yeah, the way stuff is going. I mean, already being able to communicate on the internet, it's like we're really starting to share even memes. It's like you can see a picture and know what that emotion means. Like, and you can yeah, I'm sure I'm saying stuff that's already been said, but like,
no, not at all. You're not. No, and you're right. Because when we look at memes, we don't think, like, I'm usually like, oh, that's hilarious, but I'm not thinking like, oh, an entire world event with feelings is so succinctly put in this one image with this text that I fully, it's resonating with me in an instant.
whew, yeah. Yeah. I get excited about that shit because I can get real heavy with it if I like look into the future and see only the things that terrify me, which are a lot of things. And so then if I can like geek out on like how memes are cool and how we're becoming more telepathic, which I think is the next edge for all of us. And I think again, sex work like honed my telepathy so much, like being able to read people's energies and serve them in that way. Not to bring everything back, but I just think sex work is such a curriculum, and it can be a lot of different things. It can be really hot, like not the right path for certain people. But for me, it was a curriculum to become telepathic. And then if I can geek out about things like memes and how we're all able to like encapsulate these like complex things that we're trying to communicate in like a small 5-second TikTok video, and how like we're all on that. I'm like, yeah, I have faith.
Yeah. And I appreciate you circling it back and bringing it back, because like I firmly believe that sex workers are how do I put this, heroes, like, creators of understanding.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so smart, so fucking smart in like intelligences that we do not even have names for or words for. And oftentimes we have to perform not smartness, and that's part of how smart we are. It's just like performing, and like keeping the things we say to ourselves or to each other, the things we see and know to ourselves and to each other. I think all marginalized identities have like their own intelligence that is invisible to like the status quo, which is tragic, because like if marginalized people across all different margins could like speak what they know, like our society would be so much smarter. But that said, like I've never met a sex worker who isn't smart in this one kind of way. We can be really dumb in other kinds of ways. I've been really dumb in other kinds of ways, so I'm not trying to like, paint a rosy picture, but there's a certain just thing you need to survive.
Yeah, and what I've sort of surmised as one way is that like we just have so many experiences with so many different people that we absorb and download so much information, and every experience that anybody has, you're learning from it ideally. And when we have 50 to 100 experiences a night, 3 to 4, sometimes 5 nights a week, like that is a lot of personal, interpersonal experiences that like you can't duplicate that in many other jobs. Maybe bartenders, but it's very different because it's not them, it's the drink, So
For real, you said it.
yeah. Yeah. I want you to say some stuff about Thanksgiving.
Oh, Thanksgiving's trash. Thanksgiving's been trash.
I know.
Yeah, I used to fast on Thanksgiving. Then I got pregnant and have been breastfeeding, and I'm like, don't fast because like
right.
a bitch is hungry.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Thanksgiving's trash, and I'm also like, I understand like wherever anybody is. I'm not one to tell anybody where they should be, as I get on this podcast and tell folks about. But I don't even really believe in like Friendsgiving or anything. Like, it's such a tragic day that for us to be giving our energy of gathering and feasting, even if we're like, Thanksgiving's trash, like, it's not for me, you know. I'll choose another day. I'll choose like a different day. But I understand everybody's has different feelings about it.
Yes.
I do think that days like, I think as Americans, we can like get really cerebral with our shit and be like, well, I'm going through the motions of these things, but it doesn't matter because I know it's fucked up, you know. But I also think that the things we do have energy, and like gathering is a ceremony, feasting is a ceremony, being together is a ceremony. So what are we pouring our energy to? Matters, you know, like, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, so one of your posts was like, Thanksgiving can suck a dick or something like that. I think those were your words. I'm pretty sure the word dick was in there.
Yeah, there was the same post that you were talking about where I talked about our near-death experience, which happened around Thanksgiving.
Okay.
And so I was just kind of tying it all together because I was posting on Thanksgiving, but I didn't want to be like, I'm grateful for this and that. That was just me being stupid on the internet.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
So before we get to the one thing that you just mentioned, the near-death experience, yeah, I have this really weird relationship with Thanksgiving, so I was really grateful to see that post because Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday because it's the one holiday where my whole family gets together, and it's the only thing that is important to me in that moment. But I've known for a while, I'm like, but no, you know. And so a part of me, so I denounced Christmas years ago. I'm like, no more Christmas. Like, I don't celebrate Christmas. I'm a huge Grinch, bah humbug, no Christmas. And so now lately I've been like, oh, does Thanksgiving have to go too? Am I going to have to tell my family, like, bye, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing Thanksgiving anymore because it's so tragic and violent and horrific, the things that happened surrounding that holiday. And so I was really grateful to see somebody else be like, no, fuck Thanksgiving. And I was like, okay, like, I need to like really get there, you know?
Man, I admire your ability to speak truth to your family though, and to like speak your truth, because that would be hard for me. Like,
Really?
and a Thanksgiving, like, and it's beautiful that you find like that it's like a beautiful thing for your family to be together. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah. And
that you want to be with your family.
Yeah, but I'm also like, you know what y'all do to the turkeys is fucked up as hell as well. Like, I don't eat turkey, I don't eat birds, and like I don't eat meat, and like what the turkey thing is so horrible. Horrible.
Word.
Yeah.
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 Maybe you are like the one in your family to be like, can we gather together on grandma's birthday or something? Like, maybe you're the one. I don't know your family dynamics. I know that I sometimes feel very mute in my own family.
Really?
So yeah, so I'm like, I'm in awe of you, you know, enjoying time with your family, and then also being like, I'm gonna speak my truth about this event, because I'll just dip out. I'll just dip out and never come back. That's not healthy.
Well, I mean, family dynamic is very complex, and like I think that in a lot of ways I'm privileged, but specifically around even I have white friends who are like, I can't talk to my family the way you do. I just got very fortunate. And something you had said earlier was you didn't you say you were listened to as a child? Is that something that you said? Am I totally off base on that?
Oh, yeah, my auntie took me seriously as a tarot reader when I was like 5.
Yeah, and I think that's really like vital to like development. And so it hurts me. I want you to find your voice with your family, and only for selfish reasons, because I desire you to be in your full power. And I don't know how I got there. I think from a very young age it was just like fuck you, fuck this, fuck that. And they were like, oh, okay. I don't know how
Look
that
at you, a
happened.
liberator for your whole bloodlines. That's so beautiful. That's so beautiful.
Thank
That's
you.
cool.
Thank you. I had a feeling that you're making my face hot. My face is hot.
You were making my face hot earlier. I was like, my lips were twitching. I was like, oh my God, does she do this to her clients? So it's mutual.
Yeah,
hot face for hot face.
Yeah, you're just like very magical, and like that was very obvious looking through how your friends respond to you and how much love that they share with you. And so I told my producer coming into this, I was like, I did tell her, and I told you, I might cry on this episode because the stuff I was reading about you is just like, and the way you seem to live and present is just so powerful. And like, so it's surprising to me that you don't feel like you can have that voice with your family, because I'm looking at you going like, wow, what a goddess, and like just so strong in your power, you know? That's how I perceive you.
You're gonna make me cry because even as I went on this podcast, we just gonna be crying at the end. As I went on this podcast, I was like, I don't know if I'll promote it on my Instagram page because my family's on there, and I don't know if my aunties or my brothers and sisters, like, it's pretty obvious from my Instagram that I'm like non-traditional or whatever, but I've never really come out and said like the history of my work or even what I do now. And so this could be a key, and just, but there's like something inside me that wants to be seen. That's why I wanted to come on this podcast, was like, I want to be seen. I want my voice to be heard. I want to hear other people's voices, you know? So there's like a pull for integration, but integration's also like scary, you know? And then there's real like consequences we face in our jobs for being visible. You know, everybody who's visible is so brave to me. Like everybody who's like, I like teeter on the line of visibility, and then I'll come back and like, you know.
Yeah, I understand that completely. I understand that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us do. Yeah.
Yeah.
As we meander through life and meet new people, and yeah, it's always, it's like fluid and always changing, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
and it's
well, I'm so glad that you're here sharing your stories.
I'm glad too. Thanks for giving all of us a forum.
Oh yeah, I'm honored that so many people want to talk with me. I'm just like, you know, surprised, not surprised, but like honored all the time when someone says yes. I'm like, oh yay, you know, like, so it makes me it's very fulfilling. Yeah. I wanted to just, I feel like you might have some insight on like sort of like a life, since you had a near death experience, but like, you know, living life to the fullest and really cherishing each moment because of the experience that you had. And I believe that you were not alone in that experience, and I'll let you decide whether or not to include others, but what that was like. And if you don't want to say who the others are, like collectively as your group, like what did you go through in those moments and after? If you don't, whatever you feel comfortable sharing, be grateful.
You're beautiful. You don't make me cry. But it's so I think so I had a near death experience when I was driving from Oakland, which is where I live, up to Humboldt, which is where my children's father lives. And I was doing that drive a lot. The baby was like, she was maybe like 10 months. So that drive is not cute anyways. It's like a 5-hour drive. It's fine if you're alone, but with 2 kids and a baby, it's a lot. And it was a really, really stormy night. But I felt like I couldn't say no to my children's father, because he can put a lot of pressure on, like, you're coming up tonight. And I was like, I can't say no, so we're gonna do this. And I was tired and everything. So anyways, we were doing the drive. My son and I were having a lot of conversations. We were having just like a lot of different conversations. We were talking about the faces of our unknown ancestors and what they might look like. And at a certain point, the baby was crying, and We were saying, I want to put the faces of our unknown ancestors on a flag. I don't know where that conversation was coming from. I was just trying to talk, but I also I talk to him, um, and he likes to talk too. And then there was a point in the car drive where I asked my grandmother, who passed on, to be in the car, which I ask her a lot because she raised 8 babies. She had 13 pregnancies. And sometimes I don't know how to do it with my 2 kids, and the baby was crying. I was just like, Ray, please be in the car, because this baby's crying. And when your baby cries, you can't focus. So anyways, we were just going the speed limit, looking on the road, but we just hit ice, and it was on one of those windy roads. And the car flipped like 4 times. And as the car was flipping off a cliff, and as the car was flipping, it was just like everything slowed down so much. And I felt like I was in a dice. And I just kept saying, the babies are alive, I'm alive. The babies are alive, I'm alive. The babies are alive, I'm alive. And it lasted forever. And I felt like in that moment, I also cashed in something, some kind of thing. So I was just like, here's all the good I've done in the world. Here, if you can let my children live and let me live, here it is. This is my rent or something like that. And we landed. We didn't fall off the cliff. We landed upright. The baby was crying. My son was shaken up. But my phone was in the car. And so I was it was the dark, and I got them out. And then I was like, shit, I got to get back in so I can call somebody. And I was worried that I was just shaking, my body was in pain. And I was worried that the car was going to fall off the cliff. But I got the phone, I called, we made our way up. The person behind us actually saw us flip, and so they called too. And as I was bringing them up, I was like, oh, they're alive, but you're dying, because I had a bunch of pain. And then I was like, I really want to live. And that was the first time I ever felt that, I want to live, I'll take it for granted, but I was like, no, I wish to live. It was the first time I really felt that. And since that moment, I haven't had the same, because I can sometimes be depressed. I haven't had the same, why am I here? Or I needed to assert that. So we ended up going to the hospital, and we were all fine. And we've held a trauma from driving.
Sure.
But I also learned to be able to say no, to say no, even if I'm afraid. I should have told my children's father, no, I can't do it. It's bad weather. And to also not rush. Even though I wasn't speeding, there was something inside me that was if I get there at this time, the baby won't wake up. And all the mathematics we do in our daily life. And I need to constantly remember myself that, because I get indoctrinated back into this thing that I need to be on time for matters. And it matters, but it also doesn't.
Right.
Thanks for asking me to share that. I don't get to talk about that one. So
thank you for sharing it. Yeah, I've been in an accident, so I know that it can be a vulnerable topic, but I just love that you called on your ancestors to be with you in the car. And have you thought that they were just actually there with you the whole time, and your bodies stayed intact and safe, and your lives are here? And did you contemplate that at all and speak with them afterwards?
I've thought of that a lot. And Tiago, my son, when he came out, he said all the trees were bowing to him. And I was like, whoa. He said every single, because we go through this little part of where the trees are really close, and we always say thank you to the trees, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And then right after that, we went off, and the trees literally kind of saved us. But I thought about the ancestors a lot. I just thought about how strange it was, because we're not always in that prayerful talk. I just thought of how strange it was that that we had garnered all that energy on the drive for this thing that was about to happen, that I think was probably fated to happen. Wow. And in the turning of the dice, I also felt like there was an element of choice. And I could be wrong, because I don't know what it's like to have things go the other way and lose a child, lose something, and I wouldn't ever say to somebody you chose that, because I don't think that's true. I don't think but I do feel there was a way that the way I make meaning of that was I had to assert, I want to be here,
Yeah.
I had to say that out loud with all my body, with the fullness of it.
Wow. I definitely can relate to that.
Yeah.
That's really powerful. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that story.
Thank you so much for letting me talk this much.
Of course. Yes. Your voice is so valuable and necessary, and you know, I'm verklempt. I thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Want to be fabulous just like these strippers? Pay attention. It's stripper tips.
Don't date someone you meet in the club. I know this is controversial. That was the thing that first came to mind, though. Please don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. I think I made that mistake plenty of times, so.
Get ready for our rapid fire question round. It's time for 4 for 1.
My children's father is someone I've dated in the club, and that's not the reason I'm saying that, but it's part of the reason I'm saying it. Don't fucking do it. Make sure that they can see you as whole, and like, and like, yeah.
Yeah. What can you do today that you were not capable of a year ago?
Skate backwards.
Like on roller skates?
Yes.
Oh, I'm so jealous. I want to roller skate. Okay.
I bet you will.
I will. It's in I have a huge fantasy. I have a whole thing, and you'll be the first one that I send the video to. Trust.
Okay, cool.
I promise.
To do that.
Yeah. What would you name a boat if you had one?
Oh my God. The first thing, it's basic. The first thing that came to mind was La Sirena, the siren, the mermaid. But the mermaids would probably take that boat in a heartbeat. That boat would probably drown.
I love it. That's hot. All right. What's your biggest screw up in the kitchen?
Oh my God. My entire kitchen is a screw up. I don't cook. Well, I cook every day. I cook mediocre food for my children every single day. It's all of it. I'm going to cry now. That's going to be the thing that
I love that that's the thing that makes us cry. That's fine. Okay, last question. If you could know the absolute and total truth to one question, what question would you ask?
Oh, Jesus. God. Are humans artificial intelligence? Like, how did it come to be? Are we the AI? That's what I would ask.
That's a good one. Yeah. Is this real? What is this? What year is it? Does time even exist?
Yeah. You said it.
Oh my gosh.
You said it.
So before we close up, I just want to remind all of our listeners that this is currently a listener-paid show, and it's so we can pay our guests, pay our hosts, and retroactively pay our past guests. So if you love this show, please consider donating to Yes, a Stripper Podcast at paypal.me/Yes, a Stripper Podcast. You can also visit yesastripperpodcast.com and find a donate button on the homepage. So, Natalie, it has been such a pleasure, and I knew it would be. I could just tell speaking with you today. I'd love for everyone to be able to find out more about you and follow you and get to see what I have gotten to see today.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm not super visible. I have an Instagram that's mala_e, like it's in Spanish. So it's like Y_milagrosa. It means bad and miraculous. And then I wanted to plug my studio, which is Body High Pole Dance. It's a stripper-owned studio in Humboldt County. And then I wanted to plug the person whose equipment I'm using. Yeah. He has a podcast called Queer Stories Podcast. That's all about queer history and queer stories. And he's graciously hooked it up right now.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that podcast and the information about you as well. And make sure that you go and follow all of those accounts and get to know Natalie a little better and let her know what you think of her episode. And thank you so much. I'm so happy to meet you.
I'm so happy to meet you too.
Wonderful. And thank you to everyone out there in listening land for tuning in every Wednesday to Yes, a Stripper Podcast. We'll see you next week. Bye. Thanks for listening, everyone. This episode has been a production with Period Podcast Network. Find out more on Instagram at Period Podcast Network. Be sure to follow us on Instagram too at YAS, a stripper podcast, and you can find us on Twitter at YAS, a stripper pod. Please like, subscribe, and rate YAS, a stripper podcast here on YouTube. See you next week.